All right, welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about the third integrated task in the speaking section of the TOEFL IBT. This is a campus situation like the first of the integrated tasks, only this one is a problem and solution situation. Now, it's very similar as far as the audio file that you're going to be hearing, because you're going to be hearing two students talking about some sort of a campus situation. However, obviously, this one is going to be about some sort of a problem. And you'll notice here, this one is just a listen and speak task, as opposed to the previous one, or the previous two, which were read, listen, and speak. So this one is a little bit less integrated than the previous two tasks that we went through. Also, oftentimes this particular task type is referred to as speaking section question 5. If you've been watching these videos or if you're in this course, then you obviously know my thoughts about calling these questions. They're not, they're tasks. Okay, so let's go over what you need for this particular task. Once again, you need the ability to focus. You need to have at least an intermediate level of English skills and vocabulary. If you've been watching these videos, then you know that if you press that word vocabulary anywhere that you see it linked or up here in the toolbar, it will take you to the TOEFL vocabulary database. Now, I may have mentioned this in blog posts, but I don't think I've mentioned this maybe I mentioned this in the reading section videos, but you don't necessarily need to study vocabulary for the TOEFL exam. However, doing so will certainly help you out. So I made this database. It has thousands of words. Well, there's over 3,000 words here. And these are the most commonly used words in the English language. Of course, that's going to change a little bit from year to year, but I've got more than 3,000 of them here. So the thing is, you probably already know most of these words. If you have an intermediate level of English, you probably know most of these words. And if you decide that you need to expand your vocabulary, going through these lists is not going to be so difficult because you don't need to learn all of these different words. You can see they have a ton of them. So one way that I tell people that you can use this database is just go through the list. If you see a word that you don't know, click on it. Well, you probably know that word, Canadian. But just as an example, if you click on the word, it takes you to the pronunciation portal of GiveMeSomeEnglish. It tells you exactly how to pronounce it. It's spelled phonetically and also in the phonetic language. We have links to other lessons if you're not sure about the term root word, or if you're not sure about, if you want to learn more about stressed syllables, you can click on that. It takes you to the blog post about that. So you can click on just about any link anywhere in GiveMeSomeEnglish, and it will take you to different lessons and different resources that will help you in your learning. Basically, GiveMeSomeEnglish is the best English website on the universe. I was going to say on the universe. That would be in the universe. There's a little English lesson for you about prepositions. But really, I've been working my butt off to make GiveMeSomeEnglish the best English language website in the universe. We're still not quite there yet, but we're getting real close. Okay, so the point is, you have lots of resources available to you. Anytime that you see a link, it's going to take you to some place helpful. So if you need to raise your English level or expand your vocabulary, just use the resources that are available to you. Everything is linked. All right, so you also need to have the ability to speak in a noisy room without distractions, because in the different testing centers around the world, you really don't know what the conditions are going to be like, unless, of course, you visit the testing center before exam day, which is another thing that I highly recommend, if that's possible. If you're in a situation where the testing center is close to where you live, you should definitely visit the testing center before exam day. But that's another story. We'll deal with that in another lesson or a blog post. So the point is that you should be able to stay focused in a very noisy room. Also, even if you're in a very quiet testing center and there's no construction outside, in the speaking section, since the exam is all timed and you have no control over the timer, everybody is going to be speaking at the very same time. So it's going to go from being quiet to suddenly everybody in the room speaking at the same time. So you have to be able to Remain focused. Sometimes you might have to just put your head down, put your hands over the headphones, and just, remain focused on what you're saying, not worry about what the other people are saying. All right, so getting to what you actually need for this particular task, though. You need to have the ability to recognize the problem that the person is experiencing. And that seems like it should be a pretty easy thing. In most cases, they will directly say what their problem is. In fact, all cases, they will directly say what their problem is. But in the Tricks and Traps video, I will show you why this is actually something that you need to focus on, because there is a little bit of a trick that the makers of the exam put into this task type. You also need to have the ability to recognize the advantages and disadvantages of a possible solution which is being suggested. That's because one person is going to be talking about the problem and the other person is going to be talking about possible solutions. They will usually offer two different solutions. So that's another thing that you have to recognize. The problem that the person is having and the solutions that the other person is giving. And then this is where this one gets a little bit different than the first campus situation. In this integrated task 1, that campus situation, you had to talk about the person's opinion who was speaking. In this one, you have to express your opinion about what the person should do. Because in this particular task, the person is going to talk about a problem, the other person is going to talk about possible solutions, but this person is never going to make up their mind. They're just going to talk about it. So it's almost like the conversation gets cut off, or the person just doesn't make up their mind. And then you have to be able to express your opinion about what you think that this person should do. So that's one thing that's a little bit different. It's similar, but it is different. And this is an example of why I say that it's very important to follow directions exactly. Because if you're not paying attention and you just think, oh, opinion, okay, this is just like the other one, I have to say about the other person's opinion. Well, they don't like it. Well, that doesn't matter, because it's supposed to be your opinion. Doesn't matter what this person thinks or what this person thinks. Well, it doesn't matter as far as their opinion about the situation. It's your opinion that you have to talk about. Another thing that makes this one a little bit different is that you only have 20 seconds to prepare your response instead of 30 seconds. But this one also only has the listening file. It doesn't have a reading section, so you don't have to worry about that. Your response is still going to be 60 seconds. Very similar to the last one. And the actual construction of your response is going to be very similar to the last two. So the construction is very much the same as far as how you structure your answer. The person is having a problem. They said that this is the situation. The other person offered that maybe they should try thinking about doing this, but that person didn't like this situation because blah, 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 blah. And so that person said, well, maybe you should try this, but they didn't like it because of blah, 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 blah. And that's why they didn't like that situation. But I think that the person should choose this option because this, and this reason. Okay, so that's a very rough, obviously, example of the structure of how your response should go with this one. All right, so let's move on. So remember, following the directions exactly. I just spoke about this. It's not their opinion, it's your opinion. So whenever and this is true with every part of the exam. When you have a task, you have to follow the directions exactly. And of course, when you're going through this course, you're going to know the directions for every single question and task. So you will know this before exam day. But if in the examples, for the independent task, it says give reasons and examples. Well, it's not one reason, it's two reasons or more. Give reasons and examples. So following directions exactly the way they say it is very important. All right, so as I said before, the conversation is always between two people. One of them will always have some sort of a problem. The other one offers solutions. The person will not make up their mind. You have to state what your opinion is on the matter. Okay? So let's take a look at some of the examples. Now, there's not much to see here in the examples because there's no reading passage, but I just wanted to point out that on the example pages, I give a written version of the type of directions that you might hear in the exam when you sit down. So these types of directions, what that you're hearing through the headphones, if you already know what the directions are for the task, you can kind of blank those out. And this is another good time for you to take a few deep breaths and just relax before you actually listen to the audio file. So then when you listen to the audio file, you're going to hear the conversation. It's going to be about the same length as the other campus situation, between 1.5 to 3 minutes. And then there'll be a slight pause where it says, now you have 20 seconds to prepare your response. And then, you'll hear a beep, and then there will be 20 seconds. So while you're doing that, you have more than 20 seconds to respond, because whenever they're talking about these different directions, that's time that you can be working on your notes. Of course, not before the audio file, but after they play the audio file. Once they start giving directions, just disregard those, because you'll already know what the directions are. Start writing your notes for the task. The notes should be basically what the problem is, why it's a problem for the person, and the 2 solutions that the other person gives. But the first person, like I said, they're not going to choose one. They're probably going to give some sort of excuse why they don't like that person's suggestion. So these are the things that you write down: the problem, the suggestion about what they could do in the situation, and then why the first person doesn't like that suggestion, the next suggestion, and then why the person doesn't like that suggestion. And then you just choose one of those suggestions, and that's your opinion. Now, maybe you don't have an opinion on this particular topic, so you just choose one, either the first suggestion or the second one. And then if you don't have an opinion on why you would choose a certain suggestion, use exactly the same reasons that the other person said. So basically, when the person offers a suggestion, they will usually give some sort of reason as to why they think that's a good suggestion. You can just use that as your reason why. So you might say, well, I would choose the first suggestion because, as the person said, this would be good because blah, 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 blah. So you just use the information that they provide. You still won't need to actually think about why you have an opinion. And that's really it. Like I said, it's very similar to the first campus situation. The only difference is you don't have to read a reading passage. You have 10 seconds less to prepare your response, but that's actually more time than you will need once you know how to actually go through this, and once you know the structure of your response, and of course, once you practice, because they have all these different examples all throughout the course. So we have 3 examples here that you can use to practice with the clock, so that you know how much information that you can put into 60 seconds and how fast that you should speak. And then that's really about it. That's the summary of this particular task type. If you are in the How to Answer or the TOEFL Dominator or the Master courses, we will go over the strategy and the tricks and the traps and the master skills. So if you're in one of those courses, we will see you in those lessons. If you are in either the format or the How to Answer course, and you want to upgrade to one of the other courses, you can do that for just the same price difference. There's not an actual extra charge. Or you don't have to pay the full price for the other courses. You just have to pay the difference for the upgrade. And that might change in the future, so stay posted as far as these videos. Also subscribe to the newsletter on the actual website. You can subscribe down in the bottom of the page, on the front page here. You can subscribe to the blog posts. You can also subscribe to the newsletter. You can send me a message here, and we will take care of whatever your needs are. But that's all for this lesson, and thank you for stopping by. Have an excellent day, and we will see you in the next lesson.